Roll cages like this are widely used in the food and drink industry during the manufacture, storage and distribution of goods. Every year the assembly, movement and loading of these cages sadly results in many avoidable injuries. Injuries typically result from damaged cages, poor handling techniques when moving or assembling them and overbalancing. The aim of this presentation is to show you the correct way to assemble the different types of cages and containers, how to recognize any faults or damage to them, and most importantly, how to safely move, fill and transport them so that the potential risk of injury to you and others is greatly reduced. Because of the potential risk of injury, such as trapping your hands and fingers or being struck by falling cages or bases, the wearing of personal protective equipment is very important. In every case, please make sure that you wear safety boots, gloves and high-vis at all times. It is also important that you use safe manual handling techniques when assembling or moving the cages to avoid the risk of injury. So, let's start with the assembly of a red roll cage. Carefully remove a base from the stack of empty roll cages, making sure that the stack is stable, isn't top heavy, and that there isn't any risk of it falling over. There should be no more than 4 broken down cages inside an empty one. If there are more than 4, or the stack seems unstable, always ask for assistance. Never put yourself at risk of injury. Place the base on the floor and check for any yellow damage identification tags that may have been previously attached. If there are any, then remove the base from circulation and place it in quarantine for repair or disposal. If none are visible, then check that the base is stable and that the wheels and wheel plate is free from damage. Look out for any material that may be caught around the wheels, such as plastic wrapping. If you find any damage to the base, you must apply a yellow tag, remove it from circulation and place it in quarantine for repair or disposal. Next, remove a cage side from the stack and again check if any yellow tags are attached. Check the frame for any distortion or broken spars, sharp edges or damaged frame welds. Other people will be using this cage after you, so remember your checks will help protect them from potential injury. If you do find any damage, then yellow tag it and quarantine it. To begin assembly, insert the cage side into the housing slots on the base. Then, with your foot, secure it with the metal clips. Repeat this for the second cage side. If curtain sides are to be used, it's important that you check after assembly for any rips, tears or visible damage. And most importantly, make sure that the curtain is on the outside of the cage side, so that when the cage has been loaded with goods, you can fasten and secure them properly. Next, we're going to assemble a milk roll cage. As always, make sure that you're wearing the appropriate PPE before you begin assembling or moving a cage. And take care to avoid trapping your hands or fingers when removing a cage from the stack. Again, start with a visual check for any previously attached yellow tags, and remember to quarantine the cage if you find any. Remember that for milk roll cages only, the tags must always be placed on top. Now, do your own check for damage to wheels or wheel plates, or for any material that could be caught around them, as this could make the cage difficult or hazardous to maneuver and could cause an injury. Check the frame door and shelves for any distortion, broken spars or protruding frame ends, or any damaged frame welds. Also check that the catches and hinges are in good condition and undamaged. Broken or bent doors could cause injury to store members of staff when they are restocking the milk. If the catches do not fit properly or the hinges are broken, it could result in the milk cartons falling out. The same applies if any of the bars are broken or missing, or any of the shelves are damaged. If it's damaged, tag it. Remember, think of the safety of the person in the store who may be handling the cage after you. Assembling the milk RC is very straightforward. First, start by lifting the base shelf. Drop it to the lower frame and push both sides towards the base until they lock into position. Individually, drop the 3 shelves into position, making sure that they fully locate properly and are secure. Remember to take care not to trap your hands or fingers. And hey presto, the cage is now ready for use. Finally, we come to the thermotainer, and as there isn't any assembly necessary, we can start by checking to see if there are any previously attached yellow tags. If none are visible, do your own visual check for damage. Again, looking for damage to the wheels and wheel plates, or to see if any material is caught around them. Check for damage to the casing or any sharp edges which could injure someone. Also look for damage to catches or door hinges. Remember, if it's damaged, tag it. If it's free from damage, the thermotainer is now ready for use. So, there we have all roll cages and containers assembled and checked. However, there are a couple of things worth pointing out before you hand them over to an order picker. Never attempt to move more than one empty roll cage at a time. Never pull them, always push them, making sure that the 2 swivel caster wheels are closest to you, and always move them at a walking pace. By pushing, you are facing the direction of travel. It is ergonomically better for you and will reduce the risk of trapping your foot. Never push a roll cage freely across an open space or across to a workmate, and never ever ride in or on one. Remember, following these procedures will help to reduce the injury not only to yourself, but to the people that may be handling the cages after you. Now it's time to fill the cages and containers with goods. As with the assembly of the roll cages, order picking also requires that you wear the correct PPE. And remember to keep using safe manual handling techniques at all times when order assembling. It is a good idea to give the cage or container another check for any damage. If you do find any, or a yellow tag has been previously attached, remove the cage from circulation. It is important to remember that other people will be handling the cage that you are about to load. So, if it is not loaded correctly, there is the potential to cause injury or damage. Fill the red RC by stacking heavier items at the bottom. Use the interlocking principle and always keep the load within the base. If you fill the cage with heavier items at the top, then you run the risk of crushing lighter items below. Don't fill the cage above the cage edges, making it top heavy. Remember, a toppled cage could cause a lot of damage, not only to goods, but more seriously, a person. And let's be honest, it's common sense really. If the cage is fitted with curtains, fold back the Velcro strips along the side frame. Don't have them loose during order picking. Once you've finished assembling your order, secure the load by the relevant RDC method, such as curtain sides or shrink wrap. You can now move your cage to its designated drop-off area. Filling a milk RC follows the same principle. Again, give the cage a look over for any signs of obvious damage. And if you find any, or a yellow tag has been previously attached, remove the cage from circulation. Start filling the cage from the bottom, never from the top. Don't leave lower shelves empty either, as in both cases this will make the cage top heavy and likely to topple over. You wouldn't want to be cleaning up the mess that would make, would you? If there is any leakage from a damaged milk container, don't walk or push the cage through the spillage. Arrange to have it cleaned up immediately. After filling the cage, close the door, making sure that the locking pin is correctly in place to prevent accidental release of any milk containers during loading and transporting. If you are manually moving a full milk RC, remember to push it whenever practical, with the 2 swivel caster wheels closest to you. Never try to push more than one, and never ever push one across an open space or to another workmate. A fully loaded milk roll cage weighs almost 1/4 of a metric ton. After filling the cage, it can be safely moved to its designated drop-off area. Now the thermotainer. If it is packed 3/4 full, it is recommended that you add an ice pack to help keep the correct temperature. Or if only half full, use 2. After you have packed the thermotainer fully, ensure the door is completely closed with the door handle in the locked down position. The thermotainer can now be moved to its designated drop-off area. If you are having difficulty moving a full roll cage or container, then you should always seek assistance to reduce the risk of injuring yourself or causing any damage. After loading, the cage will embark on the next leg of its journey to the customer. As well as ensuring your own safety, please remember that other people will be handling the cage later, so always consider their safety as well. The wearing of your PPE, particularly your high-vis, is essential in the transport area, and it is your responsibility to ensure that it's always in good condition and fit for purpose. Before you move any cage for loading, check that it's been packed in a safe and stable manner. Cages should not be packed so heavily that it's difficult to move them, or have been packed with stock above the sides, making them top-heavy and liable to topple over. Damage to stock, or more importantly, any employee, could be very costly. Never load any incorrectly packed cages onto the vehicle. Always notify your management team if you find one. Don't attempt to load any unstable cages until they have been repacked. If curtains are fitted to the cage, check that the Velcro straps are in place and secure. Likewise, if shrink wrap, web or bungee ties are used to secure the load, make sure that they are also in good order. There is one more important check to make before you load the cage. Make sure that it can move freely. Damage to the wheels can sometimes only be detected after the cage has been loaded. This is so important because of the people who'll be handling the cage after you. A cage that doesn't move freely can make it difficult for them and cause an injury. Of course, if you see any signs of damage, yellow tag the cage and remove it from circulation. Remember to follow the safe system of work for dock levelling and tail lift operations. When loading, only move one cage or container at a time, and where practical, always push the cage, remembering to keep the 2 swivel caster wheels closest to you. Once the vehicle has been loaded, use the relevant securing devices such as rubber strips, load retention straps or bars to secure the cages. It is important to make sure that the cages are safely loaded and secured to stop the risk of any damage to the goods or the vehicle during transit, and also to reduce the risk of difficulty or injury when you come to unload them. So, now we can get on the road and make that delivery. Okay, here we are at our delivery point. Remember to follow the safe system of work for delivery point and safe parking protocols. It's important that you are wearing the appropriate PPE on arrival, as there is a potential risk of injury to your hands or feet when unloading. Before unloading, check the route that you are going to use to get the cages into the store. Check for potential hazards such as potholes, uneven surfaces, debris or obstacles that could cause the cage to topple over or get stuck. Narrow doorways or entrances are sometimes unavoidable. In these situations, take extra care to avoid trapping your hands or fingers when passing through them with a cage. When you are ready to unload, follow the safe systems of work for tail lift operations. When you open the rear of the vehicle, check that the securing devices are still in place and that the cages haven't moved in transit or have been damaged. If a cage has sustained any damage, move the stock onto another one if possible. Then use a yellow tag and return the damaged cage back to the depot for repair. Also make sure that any curtains, shrink wrap, web or bungee ties that have been used on the cages are in good order. Safely remove any securing devices and begin to offload the cages, but only 2 at a time onto the tail lift and lower to the ground. Please take extra care if the weather is bad. Pouring rain, snow or freezing conditions could make the footing or the movement of the cages very difficult. Push one cage at a time towards the store using your chosen route. But be aware there may be pedestrians or customers around, so take extra care. If available, use a portable ramp to allow you to push the cage up a curb or a lip. Never leave a cage unattended or on an incline. A runaway cage could cause a lot of damage and potential injury. At the store, you must be prepared to receive the delivery, including wearing the appropriate PPE, such as general purpose gloves. Make sure that the area designated for the delivery is tidy and that any empty cages are ready for the driver to return to the depot. As the cages are brought into the store, it is your responsibility to visually check that there is no damage to them. Look for damaged wheels, broken or damaged frames, spars or any sharp edges which could cause an injury. If the cage has curtains, has been shrink wrapped or has web or bungee ties, make sure that these are also in good order. Report any damage that you find to the driver, who will attach a yellow tag and return the cage back to the depot for repair. If you come across a cage which you feel has been overloaded, don't try and move it. Report it immediately to your management. If you have to move any of the cages, remember to push them rather than pull them, making sure that the 2 swivel caster wheels are closest to you, and take care when pushing them over door threshold strips. Once the cages are in safe storage, you can carry out your cigarette and spirit count with the driver. Move the stock safely into relevant storage or sales areas, remembering to always use safe manual handling techniques. Don't try to carry loads above your physical capability. You could strain yourself or trip and fall. Wherever possible, don't lift heavy items above your head height, as this could lead to dropping the product and potentially causing yourself an injury. Ask for a member of staff to help you or use a kick stool. Once the roll cages have been emptied, you'll need to disassemble them ready for the driver to collect during the next delivery. Always wear your PPE to reduce the risk of injury to your fingers or hands. To break down the red RC, use a mallet-type hammer to release the metal clip that holds the sides to the base. Please don't kick the clip. You may injure yourself or damage the cage. After removing the 2 sides, place them together with the base into an assembled empty cage and store ready for collection. If you find it difficult to dismantle a cage or you notice any damage, you must apply a yellow tag so that the driver is aware and can return it to the depot for repair. Now that you have completed your delivery, you will need to return the empty cages and containers back to the depot. In the case of the red RC, make sure that the sides and bases have been safely stacked, with only a maximum of 4 disassembled cages in one empty one. Once again, check the route for potential hazards that might make it difficult to move the cages. Take care when passing through narrow doorways or entrances to avoid trapping your hands or fingers. And remember to be aware of any pedestrians or customers that may be around. Use a portable ramp, if available, to push the cages down a curb or lip, and never leave nested cages unattended or on an incline. Once back at your vehicle, use the safe system of work for loading, and remember not to position any more than 2 roll cage stacks on the tail lift at any time. When you have loaded the vehicle, use the relevant securing devices to safely secure the cages to stop the risk of any damage to them or the vehicle when in transit. This also reduces the risk of injury when you or the next person comes to unload them. Close the back of the vehicle and carry out the safe systems of work for tail lift operations. You can now return to the depot. Once you have arrived back at the depot, again, carry out the safe system of work for tail lift operations. Open the back of the vehicle and check that the securing devices are in place and that the roll cages haven't moved in transit. If any cages or stacks have shifted or are difficult to move, get assistance. Don't try to move anything on your own. You could cause yourself an injury. Safely remove the securing devices and check for any signs of damage to the cages. If you find any, use a yellow tag and move the cage to the designated area for assessment. Please take extra care when moving any damaged cages. If you are finding it difficult, get someone to help you. Remember to push the roll cages rather than pull them when moving them to the designated storage area. Milk RCs should be stacked together by opening the front door, lifting the base and pushing one inside another, making sure that there are only 4 stacked together at any one time. Before you move any of the stacked cages, check again for any damage, and if you see any, yellow tag it. The stacked cages and containers can now be moved to the designated quarantined or stacking area. Once the stacks of empty cages have been placed on the bay, check that they are stable and not top-heavy before you move them. If this is the case, then don't attempt to dismantle or move them on your own. You should report it to your management team and get a workmate to help you. Again, continuing to wear the correct PPE is important to reduce the risk of causing an injury to yourself. If a cage can't be repaired, then dispose of it or its component part into the relevant waste container. Remove any yellow tags from cages that have been repaired and return them to the designated storage area for reuse. And there it is, back to where it all started. Just one complete cycle of a roll cage's life. So, let's just remind ourselves of some of the important things to remember when handling any type of roll cage. Always make sure that you're wearing the correct PPE. Always be on the lookout for damage to the roll cage, and if you find any, yellow tag it. Always use safe manual handling techniques when assembling or moving the cages to avoid the risk of injury. Never overload them. Think of the person's safety that may have to move it after you. If you are struggling to move a cage or dismantle one, ask for help. Don't run the risk of an injury. By watching this presentation and by following these guidelines, the risk of injury will be greatly reduced, not only for you, but also for your work colleagues. Thank you.